Hi, so I'm looking at the question that you had, and I have a few ideas for you, but let's consider this kind of like a conversation, and we can go back and forth. And if I can help you find more stuff, oftentimes it's kind of like, well, we look in this spot, and then we learn this, and then we go look in this spot, and then we learn that maybe we should go back to this spot and look in a different way. So, for what it's worth, this is a starting point. What I did is I highlighted keywords. So we have a population. There's also a population descriptor. So in psychology, they consider population as how a group would self-identify. So maybe sexual identity, maybe gender, maybe age, demographic stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're looking at a comparison with the general population. That we might have to tease that out, but let's see what we can find. And sexual trauma has different names too, like intimate partner violence or specific like sexual assault. It depends on what angle you're coming from and what discipline we're looking at. So, where I would start, excuse me, you're familiar with searching in the catalog, which is just kind of like books and a collection of some of the databases, and that's a great place to look. I think since you have such specificity, it's okay if we go into the databases specifically. I saw social work and baking. I remember I did that for a class in like January. When you go into databases, oh, by the way, we're having problems this summer where you're not being prompted for off-campus access. So log in there first. Otherwise, you might not get access and things get weird. Like pop-up blockers are blocking that, which I've got pop-up blockers. So for what it's worth, when you go into the databases, you'll need to be on campus or logged in. And you can go by discipline. You're probably aware of that. And when you go in, say for example, you went into psychology, here's a great database to start with. PsycInfo from the APA, American Psychological Association. Let me show you a tip, and then I'll show you some other databases that I recommend looking at. When you go into psychology, we know that we're looking at behavioral sciences, right? And it's evidence-based. And there are a whole bunch of different things that we can assume. So this is not probably looking at engineering as much as it is people, but it might be looking at like people in the engineering disciplines. So getting through all of that, we know that we're in the discipline of psychology. So let's go to advanced search and start putting in our keywords. So have you ever heard of the PICO model? Some people in social work use that. Population intervention. Outcome is O. I forget what C is, but the big one is population. So let's start by putting in our population. So you listed queer people or men. So queer, what's another name for that? Oh, hello, there's little suggestions. Queer or LGBT. And if we do a star, that'll get LGBT, LGBTQ, LGBTQ+, and all of those different iterations. Oh, that you can see right there. And when you do an or, I don't know if you want to put transgender, or if you want to use more terms or less terms, but it's handy to put these different declarations of population. Some people identify with some, and they would accept the description of others, but this is where we kind of we mix and match. And then we have gender, men or male. Oh, to get male or males, we do that. And here we have like masculinity, we have age ranges and things like that. Are you interested in an age range? If we get too many, you can put in an age range. And then sexual trauma, if it's more than one word. Let's see. Let's do sexual assault, or a big one in social sciences, social work, especially intimate partner violence, also called IPV. So when you put all those different things in there, you can narrow it down. If you get too many, you can narrow it down to just the abstract. So let's do that at the beginning. If we get too many with just the abstract, then we can narrow it down to the title, and then everything will be just on that topic. This is handy because sometimes a lot of these terms will show up in articles that are not quite what we're looking for. And then let's go to you could do years. Oh, let's just start with this. I don't want to apply equivalent subjects, thank you. I don't want to apply related words, thank you. I want to be very specific. I want the recipe to be exactly what I'm looking for. Drum roll. Let's see how many we get. Ooh, 284. That's pretty good. It might feel like it's too much, but let me tell you how you can sift through these without actually looking at them. First of all, you see dissertations show up. Dissertations are great, but for what the research that we're doing, they are too much. So let's just do academic journals. So I can narrow down right here, academic journals. And that'll bring us down to 200. And I also see that the date is set at like 1974. There has been so much accomplished in bias in politics, developments in psychology, therapies, and all sorts of different things that I would hesitate to go back that far. So let's look at, I don't know, the past 7 years? Your assignment may have a prescription. Oftentimes it's 5 years or 10 years or something like that. And let's see how many we have left with that. Hey, 117. That's sustainable. We could go through that. And the cool thing in this database is oftentimes you could search by methodology. So in your methods class, do you have to find like a randomized controlled trial or a quasi-experimental or quantitative or qualitative? You could also add another one and add that methodology there. And it should show up because here they're very declarative. Qualitative exploration. But since you're comparing against the general population, I'm guessing you're looking at quantitative. What you can do is just, and this is how scholars would do this, is you get close, and then through those 117, you just cruise through. So there's disclosure, there's influence of negative peer support, I don't know, and every time, international, no. Attitudes, and I would start to just open up tabs, and then I could go through those after I go through my search results. Sorry, I can't help but get sucked into this. I have ADHD, and so I make the perfect librarian where I'm just always distracted by everything. There's school populations. So there might not be, oh, hello, a large victimization among diverse U.S. men. I was just about to say, there's not going to be anything that compares it to the general population, yet here we go, a large study. So when you've gone through those and looked at the ones that you're interested in, it's kind of like you're sifting down to what you're most interested in. So instead of finding it with keywords, you have to do a little bit of reading. So the first thing that we did was we read through the titles, and the second thing we're going to do is go through the abstract. And do they talk about the general population or specific populations? And you might be able to tease out little statements. It might not have an overarching statement, but it might tease out little statements that will support your claim that sexual violence is more prevalent among LGBTQ identifying men. When you get to this phase, though, I would recommend that you start taking notes. So if it's one that you really like and you want to quote it, There's citation generators here. So imagine you would do APA. You can also email yourself articles, but I would recommend having it in a note-taking software like Zotero, because then when you have something, you can add notes, or OneNote or something like that. So you can always have the citation, then you can grab the quotes from that, and then moving on to other databases. What are some other databases to look at? And try different keywords. You might come along with something where it says a perfect keyword, and you might be just like, oh, that's great, and you just write that down. If you go over to the Marriott Library homepage in Research Guides, I have a guide that I recommend you use. I recommend you consider using. It's in the context of social work, but social work has a lot to deal with interventions, sociology, criminology, public policy, heavy in psychology. So whether you're in social work or psychology, it's a great place to go. And this is loading ever so slowly, and it always does. I'll close some of my tabs. PsycInfo, great place to go. I will wait. Oh, I'm just going to cheat. Oh, I'm not going to cheat. So you could look for social work here. The psychology guide's okay. But my social work guide is designed for lit reviews, and it's a little bit different. So if you go to the social work guide, and then go to PhD and Master's Help, here's how you find more and get validation on whether what you found is good enough. And you can also send me bibliographies, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this is good, or oh, why didn't you put this? So the first thing is you can validate keywords and concepts with text mining info. You could do that on the open web. But there's public policy with CQ, library catalog I already talked about. There's newspapers and policy. There's open web searching. I'm not sure that would be helpful. But in discipline-specific research, you will find my favorite databases for going through systematically. And if you're in a group setting, you could assign people different things like this. A big one that I recommend is sociological abstracts, because they're looking at general populations and minoritized populations or segments of society. That would be a great place to go. Another one would be PAIS, because they take sociological, psychological, economic, and all of those data, and they do public policy. So do we need a intimate partner violence intervention by a state legislature? Do we need a clinic that has specialized counseling in that? So this would be where they would test policies like that. PsycInfo we already did. Are you interested in, oh, this one's pretty good too. That's kind of like everything. It's okay. I like the more specific ones, but give it a shot. Cinol, it's deceptive because it looks like nursing, and we're like, oh, nursing. So it's like how to draw blood and administer medicine and make sure blah, 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 blah. But in reality, in the practice of nursing, there is no one in the medical field that is more responsible for all sorts of interventions and looking out for people, managing, de-escalating situations. And some of it's about healthcare, but a lot of it is like the personality, the populations, and things like that. So look in Cinol. That one's really great. Next, high-level systematic search tools. Oh, by the way, these are all databases from that database list. High-level systematic search tools. Have you ever used these? Scopus and Web of Science are very similar. I'll do Web of Science today. If you find an article that's just gold, it's just perfect, you can look it up in here and see which ones cited it since it was published. For example, the web page is supposed to be loading. I was talking faster than the web page could load. I'll do that same search. I don't know why it's going so slow. I don't know if I need the VPN. They're doing a lot of stuff at IT on campus these days. Okay, so or LGBT star. And let's add another row. Let's just say men. Whoops. Men or male star. Now here's an interesting one. On this one, men are often, I would say in an inordinate amount of time, responsible for sexual violence. So in this one, you would have to take care and make sure that it's on target with what you're looking for. Or, did I tell you why I'm putting stuff in quotes? It's so the keywords stick together. Otherwise, the database is going to look for them all over the place instead of like stuck together in a phrase. Okay. So this database, after we've done all of our searching, we can go in with our best keywords and we can say, show me what articles had the most impact, meaning the ones that were most influential, meaning for your research, the most important ones, because they'd be the most valid, most relevant. How do we do that? If you click on, I got a pop-up. If you click on, come on, there we go. If you click on sort by, you can do by citations highest first. What that means is since these articles have been published, who has used that article in their own research? And there's a quantification of success. Oh, I didn't think about HIV. That one's been cited 253 times. Ooh, this one might be pretty good. No, I think that's like what I was talking about. Oh. So this article, Intimate Partner Violence Among Men Who Have Sex with Men, a systematic review. This isn't a specific research article. They looked at all of the evidence that has come before 2013 and then boiled it down in what's called a systematic review. It's a very systematically organized bibliography. But it was so important that these 160 articles couldn't exist unless they cited this one. So what you can do is if you find a great one, you can click on that. What are you doing? I must have spilled something on my mouse. So out of all the articles that cited that since 2013, I can go in and sort those by number of times cited. Oh, there's another review of the literature. Looks like it cited itself. So the problem that you'll have, and I'm happy to help with this, is that as you go down these rabbit holes where you're just finding more and more and more stuff, you are the researcher and you have to have this moment where you're like, this is what I was looking for, and then accept the fact that you can't do research forever, that you have to like come to a conclusion, and that's okay. As you go through these databases and as other people in your team go through databases, you'll start to see things that repeat themselves, and that's when you have validation, and that's when you can start to assemble a narrative where you'll build a bibliography from one point that leads to another point that leads to another point, and it will carry your viewer or your reader, your instructor, to the other side where all of the things that you cited in scholarly evidence will support your final claim, and it will come out brilliant. You'll get an A. You'll get scholarships, streets named after you, and Pulitzer Prizes and Nobel Prizes. So think of me when you get a Nobel Prize. Let me know how it goes.